lush forests, rolling hills, expansive views of land, sea, and sky. These serene scenes of the natural world conform to what we conventionally think of as landscape painting. At first glance, they assume an air of objectivity and authority through their seemingly realistic representation of the environment and their neatly ordered compositions. Situated within the context of colonial rule in Southeast Asia in the 19th century, this desire for control and cataloguing extended to the genre of natural history drawings, providing a close view of what lay within these seemingly exotic environments. An understanding of why, for whom, and by whom these richly detailed images were made can reveal the power and politics behind these peaceful pictures. Let's start with what we see here. So I was wondering if you could perhaps draw us back to think about how these botanical drawings were part of this wider genre of the production of knowledge during the colonial period.
Well, I would suggest here we go back to the 19th century when Raffles came to Singapore, and we need to remember that for Raffles, his predecessors like William Marsden, his successors like Farquhar, they were men of the European Enlightenment. They were very interested in the world around them, the flora, the fauna, nature, and were prepared to spend time and money documenting everything that they found, which was to them new at that point of time. So we see here a portrait of Farquhar, and one example of this collection of paintings here. These paintings, 240 of them, Farquhar carried around with him from Malacca to Singapore to Penang on his visits. And on his retirement to UK, back home to London, Scotland, he donated these folios of paintings to the Royal Asiatic Society.
We see different types of images here, from pineapples to gambia to pepper and cotton. What does this tell us about their interests?
From the drawings, the 200-odd drawings that Farquhar commissioned or collected, made during his years in Malacca, you can distinguish at least 4 categories. Plants was a major one, birds was another. Farquhar was very interested in birds. Then the invertebrate, the insects, and finally the fishes.
And when it comes to subjects like flora, right? We sometimes think of things like flowers or orchids, but I noticed that in Farquhar's commission, we didn't really see any of those kinds of subjects.
Again, here it may well have been personal interest. It could be that at that point of time, there was not an awareness or interest in orchids. The orchids that Farquhar and Raffles had seen were the jungle orchids, which is very small flowers, so it may not have been attracted to them. Here, to some extent, they were interested in commercial plants. You can say that this was to help the company decide what were the commercially viable plants that they were looking at here.
Could you tell us about the competition that took place between people like Farquhar, Raffles, and Marsden?
For Raffles and Farquhar, documenting all these new species of flora and fauna, there was inevitably an element of competition as to who could describe best and first. So Raffles had the Rafflesia flower named after him. And for the Dutch, it was a very appropriate name, that the flower was short on the ground, and like Raffles, a short person, and it was a stinky flower, like Raffles was to the Dutch. So that is the Rafflesia. Then Farquhar also had at least one plant named after him. I think it was the nutmeg plant. So there was, yes, this competition to see who can get the descriptions, the naming rights to the flora and fauna that they were documenting.
Many of these artworks aren't signed and have been attributed to anonymous artists. Who were these painters who were creating these drawings?
For the Straits Settlement, for Raffles, for Farquhar, it was Chinese artists.
Let's look at these two images here. They seem similar but also quite different. On the left is an illustration by the British watercolorist and engraver William Daniels. And on the right is one of Farquhar's commissioned drawings. Could you talk us through what we are looking at here, compositionally and the similarities and differences looking at the same subject?
The drawing of the tapia by William Daniels, who was an artist that drew for Raffles, follows a very stereotypical, very expected Western zoological drawing of how to draw these animals very naturalistically, and you notice that almost clinical with little background. But if you look at the drawing of the baby tapia done by Farquhar's Chinese artist, he has taken the liberty of putting that tapia in some kind of an environment, surroundings. And if you look carefully, the rocks are very strange looking. You don't find rocks like that in the Malayan landscape, or for that point, grass, not even the lalang. So here we have to look then for elsewhere. Where did the Chinese artist of Farquhar get these ideas here?
We have more examples here, clearly referencing certain techniques and styles, which, as you say, really come from that deep tradition of Chinese painting.
For the Chinese artists, quite clearly there are different genres, types of rocks, which you see there included in the painting. So that's why it looks strange, this combination of a Western standard of painting elements in a rather Chinese environment. Similarly here, you see it also where the bird looks very realistic. And I think in that Farquhar drawings, a series, even in Raffles, the birds come across as the most realistic. So you see in this painting here, the Chinese artist has got his drawing of the bird absolutely right. The ideas of how to draw birds is given in the Chinese manuals there. But when you look at the background, the branch, the leaves, and the rambutan, it's completely disproportionate to the size of the bird, which is accurately done. So quite clearly it suggests that the Chinese artists had a difficulty with proportion and perspective here in their drawing.
I think what's most interesting, given what you've shared, is the botanical drawing has this aura of objectivity, of scientific research. But really what you shared with us today tells us that the artist's subjectivity kind of creeps in as well. Given our discussion, about the power and extraction that lies beneath seemingly beautiful images, looking at this image right here, what do you think, or what comes to mind?
Well, we are looking here at the image of a very traditional British landscape painting. It's a very idyllic, very picturesque painting of a tropical landscape that's made to look as romantic as possible. Ultimately, I'll suggest that these sorts of landscape paintings are in some way reminiscent of that whole genre of the painting of beautiful, idyllic gardens. So ultimately, there is that nostalgia of nature here.